all my might to see the light. It blinds me, it's too bright. Here's the future days. Things that dare not change, but I hope to rearrange. Rolling through the years, living with the fear, and the truth is growing near. Yesterday's just a memory, hidden in the past, with the clue of what's to come, as the future soon may pass. Living with our own realities, working for what we hope will someday be. Late in the evening, I turn out the light, close my eyes and drift away. Time to say goodnight.
You're listening to WRSU-FM in New Brunswick. Matt Pinfield with you until 6 o'clock. I got a lot of good new music for you. That's the funny thing about New Brunswick, that I find that there are so many different areas of music. There's an interesting environment, because you'll find a lot of bands are coming to the New Brunswick area and getting involved here because they know it's a good place to branch out from Jersey. New Brunswick has a warmth to it. You know, it's a real interesting place, and I think that's why a lot of people are drawn to it. Basically what I would say about New Brunswick is I feel that the growth commercially helps the bands. I mean, makes room for more venues. You know, the Patricks came in. At one time it was only really the Meld and the Court, and the bands were having, you know, they were having bands one night a week, these clubs. And now things are really starting to happen. I mean, New York City has so many venues for people to play. New Brunswick's starting to grow. It has about 3 or 4 now, and there are more coming. If that can happen, the growth, as far as commercially, residentially, industrially, any of that type of thing, will help make venues as well. I think RSU, as a radio station, is probably the most supportive of all the college radio stations to a club, to a local, to an original music scene.
In 1945, the Court Tavern was originally known as Joe's Bar. In 1980, the original building at 149 Church Street was razed. The Court Tavern was relocated to 124 Church Street, diagonally adjacent to its current location due to city redevelopment plans.
We opened August 24th of 81. We moved across the street.
But Bob, when you first started here, man, this was the Naugahyde room, right? We started playing downstairs. Did we play here first?
No, that was
downstairs
the
first.
upstairs wasn't open.
Yeah,
they were still working on it. So
It was downstairs.
So it was
for
downstairs.
at least a year.
And there was
yeah,
like
downstairs.
red and white.
Yeah, we were going upstairs, downstairs, upstairs. It was.
Yeah. And I had this picture before that the original decor downstairs was like hanging. There were actually plants. I have a photograph.
Yeah, red and white check
They didn't
tablecloth.
last. The plants didn't last long, but I do have a picture that shows they're still barely
Naugahyde
alive.
booths
Yeah.
around the wall and English two-door,
Yeah, that's right.
decor.
With the wood and
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Okay, I met Bobby. Bobby Albert came out, he graduated in Marquette, and he started working for his dad. And the bar was actually Caddy Corner at that time, and then it came over here. And we started a rock and roll event here. It was a whole bunch of different people. Crossfire Choir came up from Florida. Tina Massey was quite important with her Frozen Concentrate band. There was just a whole bunch of original bands, and they all just flocked here.
It was like a watering hole. It's basically where anybody, at one point, at one part of the day, there would be lawyers with their little suits and ties, you know, and having the martinis, and then slowly the leather jackets would like come in, and you know, and the suits and ties would like, bye, see you later, Bobby, bye, bye, and then they'd like leave, and it was this, you know, anybody who you know, whatever you were, you could come here, and you know, and you feel at home. I remember this one guy, never been here before in his life, walks in and it's noisy and it's crowded upstairs, and he's just looking around. He's got a big smile on his face. What's the name of this place? And I'm like, he's got the suit and the tie. Obviously, he's got a lot of money, and he's got the mohawks and piercings all around him and stuff. And he was just all smiles. And he's like, I like this place. I really. And he's just like totally at home.
I was living in California, and I moved to New Brunswick from LA, and this place the Court Tavern, the Melody Bar, and the Roxy were just places you could go where there was a community. Someone was showing films at the Roxy on Tuesday nights. Matt Pinfield was spinning at the Melody. Bands were playing down here, and people were felt like people were watching out for each other, you know. And so it's actually been nearly 20 years since I was down here. I played here with the Luna Bear Ensemble before I went over to England to join Killing Joke.
It was about 1988, Jimmy Babchak, who owned Captain Video up on Eastern Avenue and was the lead guitar player, is the lead guitar player for the Smithereens. He brought this gold record down and presented it to my dad. All of a sudden, it kind of dawned on him that something special was going on downstairs, that we had a band here in New Brunswick that was known nationally and was selling a heap of records. My dad was so touched by this. I mean, he probably cried for about an hour.
He knew that his son and all his freaky kids.
Yeah, he knew that his son and all the freaky kids that were coming in were actually,
bringing in the cash.
Bringing in the cash. They were paying the rent.
Yeah.
You know, and he really let it happen, and he really accommodated.
He allowed it. Yeah, he did.
He allowed it, and also, I mean, those are big decisions. I'm sure moving the bar was an easy thing to do, and he had to do things. He realized that he sort of yielded to this flow.
Right.
I think is more.
It was a
more
conscious decision on his part, even though he was numb to it.
Right. He had no passion for it. He
Not really.
Little understanding of it, but he sort of
just like the mural on the back of the quartet.
He was putting his finger in his ears as my dad, and it kind of pees me off that somebody wrote "dang" on him. Yeah, this is Pops. That's Pops. He never quite understood these bands that I had down here. He always was asking how come we didn't have any country western bands. But which is kind of odd because, I mean, the guy never listened to country western music. I just think he thought maybe people that listen to country western music would spend a lot of money. My dad was a big Mills Brothers fan, and Frank. He loved Frank.
Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, we are dead and in heaven. And heaven is Pleased Youth opening for AOD for all of eternity. And all your friends are there. Uncle Eli, man. I knew he would be here. There he is. Here's to Uncle Eli. Hey, we're going to try to sing and sing. We're going to try to sing and sing.
Bob White is the first official show that ever happened, but the first punk show was Paul Paul Decolator's band NJF. It was Decolator and Harpo, who was Nibla Kenbane's singer, and Chuck Treese, and Andy Scoveran, who was also in Pleased Youth.
There's two great frontmen in New Brunswick, in my opinion. One, my brother, Swinger McRafter from Destroy All Bands. But the other great front person is, well, there's the caricature of Stinky Sonobloni, the Mad Daddies. That's, man, let me tell you something. I miss Stinky so much. It's a guy I talk to every day almost of my life. I mean, when, you know, back when I was managing, just, he was my friend too. And the wild stuff that he would pull off, he was so showbiz. That's what I loved about Fred. Oops, I mean Stinky. He was showbiz, man. He was showbiz personified, and he was a rock and roller, true and true.
Bobby was the first booking. You know, when he decided to get bands in here, he started, like I said, he was doing it upstairs in that back, you know, in the back room upstairs. He was one of the first bookers. I think Chris booked at one point. I know Kathy from Cheap Thrills booked the club. During this time, though, Crow had taken over the booking at one point or another, doing nighttime shows. And Crow had booked a lot of really great bands during his time here. I mean, he had an in with a lot of the touch and go bands and stuff. So at one point or another, Urge Overkill played, Jesus Lizard. I mean, he had a lot of really good bands coming through, and he, you know, during this time also, like, the music scene in New Brunswick really built up, really heavy. I mean, there was a lot of good bands that came up during that time. And by the time Crow left, I mean, when Eric Gundry took over the booking, I mean, there was like a really good rock scene in this town at that point. I mean, you know, you had Buzzkill, like Morris Needs Women. You had the Raging Lamos, Pro Solar Mechanical, ex-Vegas, they turned into Pro Solar Mechanics, the Urchins. We're talking like, you know, the early 90s, you know what I mean? Like, my band, Bad Karma, we were like almost pretty much like the house band here at that point. I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, there was like Instant Death, Bionic Rhoda, Boss Jim Geddes. During the mid-90s, I mean, that was probably like a really good stellar time for like, for the Court Tavern, as far as like, you know, local bands and like original bands from around the area. I thought it was a really good time. I booked it with my buddy Mick. I booked it with Armin. Should I say Armin Varjabedian? I must as well give his full name. He was real good at helping me do the booking at that time also. So, and then after Armin left, and Bob ended up he wanted Dennis to book with me. So Dennis booked with me at that time. Every once in a while, he'd come up with a real good one, like, you know, like Wayne Kramer played here. I remember, like, the Original Sinners with Exene from X played here.
On April 18, 2001, more than 300 people packed a city council meeting to protest an ordinance that would make the Court Tavern relocate once again.
We're being forced apart by the same way that deer are being forced out of the forest. And we keep hitting them, and that's what's happening. Like, I understand the need for progress, but it can't be tainted with indifference. And it's just,
I think that it's going to be very hard to find a place to have the Court Tavern. And as long as we are allowed to stay where we are, you know, I would just like saying that. Just if whoever be that redevelops it, we would like to be built around or to be part of that structure.
I mean, this is our family livelihood. This is what we know. This is how we put food on the table. And to take it away from us after 40 years of service to the city, I think is, you know, I mean, if you owned a home and you put a deck on for your children and you built a playroom and you did this and you did that to make the home better for your children, and you made all these improvements and this is what you knew, and you put all your money and your sweat and your tears and your love into this place, and then for someone to come along and say, well, sorry, you gotta go. It's not fair. It's not fair. This is our home. This is our livelihood. This is how we we support our family.
After strong public comment, the City Council unanimously defeated the ordinance that would have allowed redevelopers to obtain the Court Tavern.
Eventually, Dennis stopped booking the club, and when he did, I stepped back in, and I ended up talking to Andy, and Andy came in at that time. And when he did, I mean, all of a sudden, we were on a roll, man. I mean, because now all of a sudden, we had a great local music scene again. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you all the bands are coming from, you know, from what he booked in and stuff. I mean, you had X number 5, The Break.
Dave, you should talk to this guy a little late. He's doing a documentary on the Court Tavern.
Ah,
What's up, dude?
finally,
This is
somebody's
Dave.
doing a documentary on the Court Tavern. All right.
You want to
Well,
say
this
anything?
is the place. This is sacred ground of rock and roll.
The Tiny Lights he was in, and a whole bunch of bands. James
Yeah, I played here.
Scarpatoni.
I
who's
learned how to
now-
play music here, but you know, it's still standing. It's a testament to the power of rock. It's like a little golden book. The old lady would have.